Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from deltacx.com. We're a full service CX and UX agency. If you've got something you need, check us out. We probably do that. And today is a rescheduled office hours Ask Us Anything with Darren and Dr. Nick. Dr. Nick isn't here yet, so we will be starting, with Darren. But first, of course, I want to remind everybody that we are here to take your questions live. You are welcome to ask them in the LinkedIn chat, the YouTube chat. You can tweet them at me at Delta_CX. And we also want to do a quick thank you to the people who are paying at the mid or senior level low ego action hero for the paid subscriptions on YouTube. Thank you to Anita Chang, of course, our very own Darren Hood, whoever that is, Irena, who saved the day in Slack today, Jordan, Michelle, Nikki, Ralitza, Ray, Solomon, and of course, Mix Betty. And just a thanks to everybody who financially supports the channel with the subscriptions, the tips, the super chats, and the super stickers. And eventually, I hope we will have the super thanks also. So it is Friday. We usually do this on Tuesday, but we moved everything around. And sorry about that. It'll be moved around through the end of the year. So let me bring in Darren. And once we've got Nick, we'll bring him in too. But for now, it's going to be the Debbie and Darren show. So welcome, Darren. And please tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hi, everybody. My name is Darren Hood, as many of you know. First-gen experience design professional. I've been doing UX-related work going all the way back to 95 and fell in love with the discipline, decided to dive in full-time after several years of freelance design work, and just been around in corporate spaces since about 2005. I also serve as a professor at Kent State University in their Masters of UX program, at Harrisburg University now in Pittsburgh, working in their Masters of HCI program. I'm a teacher at Lawrence Tech University in Southfield, Michigan, where I reside, and about to become a professor in the CX Masters program at Michigan State University as well. You'll find me in the 97 Things Every UX Practitioner Should Know. I'm in that book, and we'll save the rest of the stuff for later. So I'm around. I'm easy to find.
Darren is everywhere, and normally we'd be introducing Dr. Nick as well, but he hasn't shown up yet, so I hope he is okay. And hello to Glenn and Ralitza, always good to see you. So I'm just going to start with our first question, and when Dr. Nick joins, we can just add him to the pile of happiness. There you go. And by the way, everybody, I only got one question ahead of time. So let me check. Hold on. I think I might have a second question. Let me just check my list. Nope. I got one question ahead of time. So please, if you've got questions, you are going to be second today. You are going to be prioritized. So get those questions in. And I've put everything over my face, so I hope nobody misses me too much. Here is our first question, though it sounds like they were looking for an answer from Dr. Nick as well. It'll have to be you and me. Seeking counsel from the Three Wise UXers. When the features for a new product are based on client requests and only limited generative research, some calls with clients, what's the best or quickest course of research action to ensure a real market exists for it and that the right features are included? Darren, it's only you and me, so you get to answer everything first.
Yep. That is a challenge. When something is based on a client request and you can't do any research on your own, that means you're going to have to do some old school research, in that you're going to have to go to find out if there's anything out there in the market that's similar to what people are looking for now, and do as much deep diving as you can to understand how that product works, what the mental models are associated with that product, what people expect, what problem or need is being solved through that project, and you're going to have to work from there. I would also, if I was doing work on that, I would try to do some research on my own, since sometimes we a lot of times we're looking for approval to do research from our own internal stakeholders or internal clients, things of that things of
I
that
planned
nature,
this for 3
then
people on the screen. There's only 2 of us. So I thought it would be a little bit lonely and mysterious if I did this and
that's
he's not even
here he
here.
comes. All right.
He's
Here he
not
comes.
here.
Oh, he's not. Okay,
No.
gotcha,
It was
gotcha,
an
gotcha.
empty
But
screen,
yeah.
a screen of sadness.
But yeah, I have been known to, if I can't do full blown research. I'm going to try to dig and do some things on my own, sort of off the books, if you will. Try to find somebody that's a proper match, because it's just so important to get input in some way, form, or fashion. But for the most part, you're going to have to do research about what already might be existing out there in the market. What are people already doing, so that we can better understand what people's mental models are, what are they expecting, what are they trying to do, and then work from there.
Yeah, and what I would add to this, and Sophie, I got your non-anonymous question. We'll add that as well. So if we are trying to ensure that a real market exists for it, I wonder if you can sneak a little bit of that into generative research. Now, I mean, like usability testing. Now, of course, that's really late in the game. By then, you're going to be, you will have built something, and they're going to want to release it. That seems so late in the game, but that can be a way to try to figure that out. But I think that I would wonder if you can partner with marketing, because marketing always claims to want to know the market and if there's product market fit. A product manager always claims that they want to know product market fit. I wonder if there's a way to partner with any of these people and say, we're looking to build something new, and I'm a little worried that we didn't really assess the market correctly. We don't really understand the users and their needs. We want to spin up some fresh research on this. Can we partner together? And marketing will go, great. We'll run a survey, and I'll go, great. I'll do some interviews, and I'll run people through tasks showing how they do this now. Marketing can survey all they want, but you're using that to buy time so that you can then do the research you really want to do, and whatever marketing finds, that's great. But I would try to find a way to buy that time, because if you're concerned that there isn't a market for what they want to build, there might not be one. And if you're concerned about the features, then you got to squeeze that research in somehow. Hello, Sophie. Hello, Roman. I'm going to put Roman's question on the bottom of the list. Sorry that there's a few people before you, Roman. I hope you don't mind being patient today. And Ralitza is adding more pieces of information to her question, so I'm going to add that in. Okay, so hopefully to the person who asked the first question, I hope that helps. Limited generative research is trouble, and you know me, I would also say document the risk. Document the risk that we are going to build something new without fully understanding what is the market or what are our users' needs. Get that in somebody's risk register or risk document, because that is super, super risky. No two ways about it. Okay, so let's move to the next question. And this one came through here on the YouTube, so I can put it up on the screen. And Glenn asks, where do you see UX going in the next 5 years? Sustainable UX. I still don't even know what sustainable UX is. What am I doing that's unsustainable? But Darren, where is UX going in the next 5 years?
Oh God, oh man, this is probably our big soapbox. We're in a bad position today. We're in a good position, but we're in a bad position in that it's like you have a BMW and you love the vehicle and it does great things, but things just keep popping up that need attention. And if you don't pay attention, you'll still have the BMW, but you're not going to be traveling a whole lot. We have UX is a really broad space, and I can't answer that without mentioning that it's a really broad space that I think a lot of times when we comment on it or when we're examining it, we have a tendency to look at it from a very, very narrow perspective, such as when people were talking about hiring. There's not a lot of jobs out there. Well, depending upon what. So because when you broaden your space, yeah, it can be really segmented to a great extent, but it's a really large space. And what somebody is doing in one space might not be doing, they might not be happening in all spaces. So just to sort of frame my answer as a whole, UX in the next 5 years, we're on a downward spiral overall. Hiring is dysfunctional. Now what's going on now that's really, really increasing in popularity is that people are giving titles instead of salaries. And
right.
they're
So everybody's
inflating
lead UX.
perception. Yeah, everybody's lead, everybody's a principal. I talked to somebody not too long ago, just having a general conversation, where a big name company was hiring principals, but they were paying like $20,000 and $30,000 under market. And when people are going to be happy to go into those positions, they only wanted 7 years of experience. It used to be that you can only be a senior at 7 years. Now they're giving people principals at 7 years. Everything keeps coming down. But while things are coming down, it's not that people are learning more. The discipline is being diluted. Its perception is being diluted. The potential value we could bring is being sold short. Minimum viable product no longer means viable. It's minimal visible product. And somebody, we're having actually recording one of my podcast shows, and you'll end up hearing this for those that listen to my podcast. Somebody mentioned how that people are saying that as long as, when they say minimum viable product, as long as the product will be purchased by one person, that's viable. Since when is less than 1% viable?
Right. That's like if marketing puts someone on the mail, if marketing puts 2,000 people on the mailing list through a dark pattern and one person later buys something, then it's a good thing we're putting everybody on the mailing list with this dark pattern.
Very bad. So UX, that's the direction we're headed, where that is the mindset. They don't mind putting people in charge of UX departments that know nothing about UX. People like me and Debbie and Dr. Nick get pushed aside and don't get hired in a lot of places. So we're in a downward spiral, which is why we fight, which is why we stand up and talk about the things that we talk about, which is why we try to encourage people to lay better foundations for their UX futures with proper education and doing things the right way and connecting with the right people and overcoming, utilizing critical thinking to overcome all the misinformation that's out there. And so, and I love the follow-up to that, Glenn. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Yes, that's why we continue to fight. We see, I've heard Debbie mention this before too, light bulbs are coming on in pockets. Some companies are starting to realize the error of their ways in hiring, and they're righting the ship. People are starting to realize going to a boot camp wasn't necessarily the best choice. And I've said it before, and I know Debbie embraces this as well. You went to a boot camp, okay, so what? Let's build from there. Let's go on from there. We're not, you went to a boot camp, shame. We're not walking through the streets, ringing a bell behind you, yelling shame. And we've all made bad decisions in our career over time. So what? But you do have to recognize if you put the wrong size tire on your car in the past, you got to realize that in going forward, or you will repeat the error. That's why we call out things like that. It just helps you in your future navigation. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We continue to share what we can share. We continue to call things out. We continue to point towards error so that people don't assimilate in conjunction with the error. Not so you feel ashamed or that you feel like you're less of a person. Who cares what we've all made mistakes? Who cares? We've made mistakes this week. So what? But the thing is, did you learn from them? Will you just be arrogant and just repeat it? That's when there's a problem. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Glenn, I hope you're kidding when you say you got a Figma tattoo.
Yeah, I hope so. Because in Figma, the funny thing is the way that these things have gone. iRise used to be the
every 3 years. Every 3 years.
Yeah, so
every 2 to 3.
It was iRise. Axure displaced iRise, which was great because you could spend at the time roughly $399 or so for an Axure license versus $120,000.
Let's remember OmniGraffle.
Yeah, and OmniGraffle is still out there. There's still a bunch of people that use, but not any. They've been misplaced.
I think the company shut down.
They did?
I think so.
Really? Oh my
Let me
goodness.
Google that before they sue me. But I'm pretty sure OmniGraffle.
Because that was like Visio for Mac.
Yeah.
Because Visio was not available for Mac, and so OmniGraffle pretty much, especially anybody who was a former Visio user, when you came over to the Mac side, you needed some dependable application to put together your wireframes and such. And OmniGraffle was the tool of choice, and it was way better and far more stable than Visio was.
It
So, but yeah,
looks
tools
like
changed.
it might still be alive, but I'm not totally sure. I thought I heard someone say that oh no, it was iRise that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
iRise
iRise doesn't
shut down.
exist. Yeah. And it was really
Sorry,
funny.
OmniGraffle.
That's how I got my start with iRise, but I never forget. You had to pay for a license, but you also had to get an iRise server.
Oh my God.
And that was a lot of money. We're not talking a drop in the bucket now. So when Axure came on the scene, on top of the fact that it helped you to get things done, a lot of the same things for just as easily, it didn't cost you much of anything. And so it was easier to get approval for iRise, or I'm sorry, for Axure than it was for iRise. And then not too long after that, Sketch came along. So it was iRise, then it was Axure, then Sketch became the next big thing. And there's always a new tool that pops up. There's no shortage. I've seen lists of as many as, I'm sure Debbie's seen these lists too, at least 20 to 30, I want to say 30, at least 30 apps that are popular in mainstream, all doing pretty much the same thing.
Right.
But nobody does. Axure and UXPen are the only true full-blown prototyping solutions. They're the only ones, and one of the lines in the sand that comes up is the ability to prototype a form where somebody can actually input data. You can't do that in Figma. You can't do it in Sketch. You can't do it in a lot of these other tools. You can only do it in UXPen and Axure. So, but then Axure is somewhat extensible.
Can I just say Axure? And let me also say, I'm going to be teaching Axure in December and January. If anybody wants to join,
Nice.
I'm doing my 2-day workshops, and I'm charging $75 per workshop. It's 2 full days live with me. So head over to deltacx.com/links. I've put all the links for the show there. How do I ask a question? How do I send something for the action stream? How do I put my name in for the free giveaway? How do I sign up for your extra courses? How do I see the calendar of events? Everything y'all ask me every time on that links page. There it is. So Darren, I want to get back to Glenn's question, just because I would like to answer it too, since we're 20 minutes in and we're on like the third question. So second question. So I don't want us to have to end up in too much of a lightning round, but Glenn, I think the best answer to the question would be that I've got an article out there, and it's called, well, I've got a few of them, but I think it's probably, if you look at on Medium and you look up Delta CX Debbie on Medium, and just Google that, it'll come up. I think it's called like the coming shift, or the correction and shift. And basically what I'm saying is that I believe over the next year or two, what's called UX is going to split into 2 jobs. One job is going to be what we tend to see now, which is, hey, you just need to know Figma and be really fast and agile and just get us some screens so engineering can build them. In my article, I call that job A, because I think it's basically going to end up being production designer, not problem finding and problem solving as guessing. And then I believe there's going to be job B. And job B is, if you're coming to this channel, you probably want to do job B. Job B is problem finding, problem solving, critical thinking, deductive reasoning, logic, really using your intelligence and ability to strategize, and making sure that good research is baked into everything. And of course, user and customer centricity. That's job B. But I think a lot of corporations are not necessarily going to want to pay for that person. And I'm not sure they're going to want to give us the time that we should have. I've been saying this year that we've been gaslit a lot. People, oh my God, engineers and product managers love to say to us, UX isn't agile, and then in their minds, they poop on us. And I say, you've got what, 6, 8, 10 engineers on the team? How about you give me 5 UX designers and researchers on my team? I bet you'll find that we're agile. But gosh, you've put just me on it and I'm allocated to other projects too. No, that's never going to be agile. It's a staffing imbalance. And if we don't get closer to that 1-to-1 ratio, we're never going to be agile. So where is UX going? I think it's going in a good place and a bad place at the same time, and that there's going to be 2 different jobs. And it's just a matter of what we end up calling them. But right now, unfortunately, most UX designer jobs are, hey, just get us some quick wireframes based on your best guess of this thing we already know we want to build. And that's just depressing. So let's move over to Ralitz's question, which is going to take me 2 screens to put up here. So it says, okay, is there any way of asking willingness to spend for a feature or capability? So Ralitza is writing a survey right now at her new job, and they expect her to write something into the survey that will measure the survey takers' willingness to spend money for a feature or capability, and that isn't complete speculation or garbage. And she said the ideas she has so far are asking about historical purchases, asking about their perception of a concrete price tag, or Van Westendorp's price sensitivity meter, which Irena had suggested. So, Darren, any suggestions in surveying people on their likelihood of buying something or how much they would pay for a thing? And Ralitza, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a thing that nobody has built yet, right? It's not like they saw the thing and now we're surveying them on what they would pay for it. They haven't seen the thing. This is just the concept of a future feature. Darren, that face.
Right. What I've seen and done, I was going through my regressions, but what I've seen and done is basically what you just mentioned, Debbie. It's, you can talk about historical purchases. I wouldn't spend too much time on that. Don't get into that too much, maybe 2 or 3 examples at the most. But at the same time, it's been mostly, I think the methodology is basically still the same. Would you be interested in X? And then give a base high level description of what you're trying to do. Would you be interested in that? And then ask them, instead of jumping right into trying to understand how much they might be willing to pay, try to gauge the practicality, how pragmatic that is, asking questions on that line, because it's really about the ascribing of value. I think the ascribing of value is more important than how much. I know that the marketing folks and a lot of the leaders want to find out how much and things of that nature, and they're too busy looking at dollar signs. But basically speaking, we need to understand and establish how much value they're going to place on something. And then you can ask them general roundabout questions. How much do you think might be fair? Keeping in mind that no matter what they say, that's not very actionable at that point, because it's going to be so subjective that the answers to that, depending upon how you frame it, could be all over the place. But ascribe value, that's key. Have them ascribe, try to come up with ways to ascribe value. Try to confirm whether or not something like that is going to be desirable at all for the target audience, and then go from there. But take that how much they would pay type of stuff with a grain of salt, because it's everybody's speculating at that point, so it's not concrete.
Yeah, I think that no matter what, and I was saying this to Ralitza earlier, that I think no matter what, if I were writing this up in a report or a presentation, I would say, well, here's the results we got from this survey about what people claimed they would pay, but we should keep in mind that they did not see Oh, Nick is here. Sorry.
Mhm.
They did not
All
see
right.
the, I don't know how long you've been here. Sorry, Nick. I've been looking at other screens. Nick,
Sorry,
are
my
you
fault.
here?
Guys, I'm so sorry.
It's
Carry
okay.
on.
We still love you.
I'm sorry.
We're not going to break up with you at all.
I'm sorry. I'm usually reliable. Sorry, it makes me feel sad.
We love you.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad you're here. I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah, I was. It's nothing good. I was putting shelves up and lost the time. Really bad reasoning. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. It happens to all of us. I mean, I think that happened to me on my own show last week. My boyfriend and I went down some Wikipedia rabbit hole, and then I'm like, "Oh, it's 6:32. My show is supposed to be on. I'm not in my own show right now." Yeah, I didn't have concealer on. I didn't have my screens up. I was just like, "I'm a failure." So I'm with you, Nick. I was late to my own show. So actually, Nick, I don't know if you have an opinion on this, but Ralitza was asking this question. She has to write a survey. Let me catch you up on it because it's hard to read it from what's on the screen. She has to write a survey at her new job, and it sounds like they expect one or more survey questions to address hypothetical future features and what might people pay for these. So obviously it's very speculative. She knows it's not a great question to ask. Do we have any suggestions for that?
I've been in this situation recently. It's very market researchy, and it makes me feel super uncomfortable because it's self-reporting on future state on something that they've never seen, touched, or interacted with. It's like, how much validity can that ever hold? But here's the thing: you do it anyway, and there's reasons for this. Okay, the reasons why you do it is, number one, you do it, but you don't tell your stakeholder, whoever's asked you to do this. This is a bit naughty, but you kind of need to see the data. And this is really very naughty of me. It depends where you are at the maturity in the organization that you're working at, right? I was asked about naming of a particular service, and that's a much more concrete thing than what you're asking. Like, what would you pay for this thing, right? Whereas this thing might not represent that. So it's not full value. You have to ask the questions to get the idea. What you may not do is feed it back. And that's what I'm saying here, is because in a really immature department, they'll go, okay, fine, we'll charge $5 for it, or make it red. And it's just, that it's not that straightforward. And if you give them effectively what they want, even though it's got zero validity, then you're all going to head off down that wrong path. So it makes sense to just say, look, I know this doesn't hold any water whatsoever. It won't even help them make the right decision. If you've got a particularly mature or experienced product manager, they might be able to, handle that kind of level rubbish insight and it not throw them out. It's just they take it on board, it gets factored in with all the other factors and decisions are made. In that case, fine, it's just another perspective. It's a little bit more data and it's taken with gigantic caveats that it should be. It's only when somebody goes, should it be black or white? And you go, make it black. And they go, okay, fine. Because two people think they said it. That's a nightmare. Does that help, or is that just confusing you more? Because it's safer to not do it if you've got any kind of reservations. Just say no. It's for all the reasons that I've just said.
Well, I'll see if Ralitza writes anything back and we'll shout it out. She's in YouTube. Thanks for joining us there. And I've already tried to answer this in our Slack channel, so I don't have anything to add to it. And let's see. So
it's usually a bit more political, but just don't let the facts and the validity get in the way of things. Like, don't let it overrule things. If you're not confident then don't report it back. That's my view, because people will take what you say as read. So don't say it. You see what I mean? Unless you've got a level of confidence.
Yeah, so Ralitza says, I cannot not give them the numbers.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Listen, if they want to jump off a cliff, then so be it. But you just caveat it and just say, look, this is based on 3 people who have never used the thing. And, this is highly indicative. If I said, look, I'll pay £10 for a litre bottle of water, and then you go, great, and you go and make the thing, and it's broadly like this, but I'm like, you know what? Now, actually, I'm only going to pay a £5. everything's wrong. All your business model's gone. Your profitability everything's not right. So that's the sort of thing you want to do a bit more properly at a larger scale.
All right. I guess
And
we'll
with
have
a prototype.
to. I was going to say, I
the
guess
closer
we
reference
will
is the real thing.
move on. But
Sorry,
thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. This is a non-anonymous question from Sophie. Now, she wrote, "Hey, Debbie and Darren," because Nick wasn't here yet. Nick, you're included. What is, if any, one good thing you were doing early on in your career as designers, but you no longer do?
Ooh.
Is that Sophie asking the question?
Yeah, she did.
Hi, Sophie. Sophie's awesome. Sophie is a goddess. I work with her at Eurostar. She's fan-flipping-tastic. Big fan of Sophie's.
Yeah, she was just on the show twice recently.
One good thing we're doing earlier. No longer do like information architecture, basic validity, sample sizing,
Wow.
all the good old school stuff that we don't do.
That's on the line of what I was thinking. Wireframes have almost become a non-entity. You very seldom need to do wireframes. The design ramps up so fast. I even worked at a company once where we didn't do wireframe. We went straight to prototyping, and they, like, one company I worked at, we were doing annotated wireframes, and then 2 companies down, everything is a prototype in Axure. And instead of putting in annotation, you demonstrated how things work by the interactivity that you wove into it. So I've seen wireframes have become almost non-existent. It depends on who the client is. It depends on where you're working. But yeah, wireframes have, like, my wireframe production levels on a scale of 1 to 10 went from 10 to 1. Like, it's almost not completely non-existent now.
Oh, it's the Mutual Love Festival with Sophie and Nick. Sophie says, "Nick, you're making me cry. Love you too. Right back at you." Oh my God, everybody.
Darren smashed that. He just smashed that out of the park. The only tiny extension I'd put would be prototype testing, because, wireframe prototype testing, because, again, I think that's because of the UX UI designer influx, that it's just like, well, we work in Figma and blah, 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 hi-fi land. We're going to stay in hi-fi land. But unfortunately, all the as we all have said so many times, all the prototyping tools or the tools that they use aren't really prototyping tools that feature the interactivity. So they end up being these hi-fi things that are thick as pig shit. They just don't do anything. They're dumb. They say, "Oh, press a button, go to the next page." That's it. I need drop lists. I need interactivity. I need logic.
Iton said, "I'm making this look like a dating show with the hearts." Oops, sorry. Let me see. What was, and yeah, I would agree, like medium fidelity. Like when I used to do medium fidelity, people loved it. Now when I do medium fidelity, people are like, "Couldn't you visual design this?" And I was like, I'm still trying to get the concept right. I'll worry about if the type is 15 or 16 later. Like I don't even know if my concept is going in the right direction. So I think medium fidelity has been lost. And I think a lot of research has been lost. We're definitely not doing as much research or enough research as we should. I think research has been deprioritized. And I think we also see that reflected in how many companies have fired or decreased their R&D teams. So I'm not even talking about CX or UX. I see R&D teams gone. From a lot of companies, other than like Apple and Samsung and a couple of the biggies, people just aren't doing R&D anymore because they all read the Lean Startup, which came out 10 years ago, and they thought, we're going to do what cool startups did 10 years ago, and we're just going to copy that, which of course nobody should. There you go.
It wouldn't be the Debbie show if we didn't give God help good kicking.
No, he didn't write that. No, Lean Startup was Eric Ries. And then Jeff ripped it off.
Right.
Apologies, Jeff got help.
Oh, Jeff
Hang
ripped
on,
it
Jeff
off.
got help preaches that gospel all day and every day.
Yeah, he ripped it off. He ripped off the lean startup, but he, for his lean UX, which is neither lean nor UX. But I'm actually talking about the lean startup, which at the time was an okay book for startups, but it doesn't make sense for non-startups, and it doesn't make sense for companies that have real UX peeps. Andre says, I agree on the topic of medium fidelity for sure. Yeah, where has it gone? Let me get another new question up. And, sorry, wrong button. Welcome back. I hit the wrong button.
Can I tell a quick story? Funny story about that. I love how we started off doing all our wireframes. We were happy with our boxes and arrows. And then we start going to mid fidelity because, hey, if you know that certain images are going to be there, just put them in there, because a lot of stakeholders had problems, which is one of the reasons why you don't see wireframes anymore. They had problems looking at low fidelity stuff. They would freak out. I did some work for Caterpillar, turned in some wireframes, and they had a riot because they thought that I was giving them the design. When they saw the lo-fi, this is one of the reasons why that stuff went by the wayside. But I interviewed for a job at IBM. I had to do wireframes as an exercise, turn them in, but it was we were doing work for Disney. So I dropped the Disney Cruise logo in the wireframes to sort of bump up the fidelity, because everybody knows that's the logo. It's going to be there. I didn't move on because they got upset. So keep that in mind with regard to the wireframing things that we're saying. If you get asked to do a design exercise, make sure you do exactly what they say, even though more experienced UXers our fidelity ramps up. We don't stay down there. If you know certain things, you're going to do it. So then the people who've been around longer get discriminated against, and nobody.
We've got a follow-up question from Ray in LinkedIn, and the follow-up question says,
Ray.
a UX principal who has some video on YouTube teaches the way to go is specializing in hi-fi prototypes because nobody's interested in anything else, and that's what gets you hired. What do you guys think about that? I assume that's why you see the focus on social media and designs, which seem to have no point except, does this look good? So what do y'all think about people over-focusing on the hi-fi prototypes? And Roman says maybe like dribble.
It is what gets you hired, and that's where UX UI came from. That's how they were able to basically hijack our entire profession by doing, ooh, shiny, look at my amazing portfolio of hi-fi stuff. Great. Those people struggle in UX roles. Yes, they are going to get the job, and it is going to get you the job. Does it do the job? No, it doesn't do the job, but it will get you a job because it looks nice. But then you'll be in real trouble and challenged by others doing really dodgy work. The problem is it's so rare to find a good process and a good way of working, a good cycle, a good agile UX process. When you do find it, it's amazing, and all this stuff goes away. It just does. Because you're iterating on behavior, on low fidelity prototypes, and it's about speed of learning. You know what I mean? This is about, is mine prettier than yours? And that's just a bullshit game that none of us play. Darren.
It's funny about that. That's another, go back to the thing I said. I think I said this before you came on, Nick, that how narrowly some people look at the world of UX. This person who claims to be a UX principal, that person probably only has a handful of years of experience. They're probably not a true principal, number one. By the way, I'll be back. Hey, Ray, I'll be back on Monday. I'm anxious to be back. Coming back. I'm on vacation. It's funny that they say things like this because they say that will get you hired. So I'm going to ask you, everything Dr. Nick said is true. I'm going to put an asterisk on there because it depends on who's reviewing your portfolio. As a former hire, yes, that depends. A lot of people reviewing candidates today don't have a lot of skill reviewing candidates. And I'm on record saying a lot. A properly structured UX portfolio will include a lot of ugly stuff because the vast majority of what we produce is ugly. Now, the high fidelity stuff comes in because people don't understand and are trying to appeal from an aesthetic perspective. So if the people reviewing that portfolio know more of what they're doing and see a high fidelity portfolio, as a former hiring manager, I would scoot on the high profile stuff, the high fidelity stuff, because that person is trying to woo me with aesthetics. I want to see the work. I want to see the journey. I don't want to see the end result. You didn't even produce that. You're the UX person. The visual folks produced that. You didn't. So I want to see how you got there. I want to see the work that got you there. So there's so many people reviewing and evaluating candidates that don't know anything about UX. That's how the hi-fi folks are getting away with that stuff. And so, pretty bad stuff. And for them to say that, that's highly misleading.
It is. But I think a lot of the audience here are people who are trying to get into UX. And that's the problem, because you're going to be competing with people with you shiny. And I've had recruiters in the UK say to me, Nick, why don't you show the final finished full fidelity production page? And I said, because it's not my work and therefore it's not in my portfolio. Right? That's the right answer. No one gives a shit about that stuff anymore. So what I would say is the truthful advice is not the right advice, but the one that's going to get you into UX, which is what you're trying to do, is you probably do want to represent something high fidelity in there alongside the other stuff in the process that goes, here's how it started from concept all the way to hi-fi with medium, with low and medium and IA and all the other bits and pieces on that journey. For me, that's what would impress me. But just be aware that in the world today, hiring managers just at the first thought will flip. I've got the fuggliest portfolio ever. It just is. It's really not pretty at all, because it's all IAs and grotty stuff that is totally unfamiliar to people. I've got one for Bentley, the car company. It's the biggest, nastiest IA I ever done, and it still scares me to look at it. But I put it in there because I'm impressed. It's impressive and scary. People don't get it. It just looks like a mess. It's not pretty.
I have my giant IA project from
impressed.
2013, and people are like, don't you have anything newer? I'm like, it's IA. I'm sorry, was this not pretty enough for you? It's still IA, and it speaks to my technique and my capabilities. Couple of things from the chat room. David Snodgrass is in LinkedIn, and he says, polishing the chrome before you've built the engine is a waste of time. Yes, for sure. So we've got more questions flooding in. Thanks to everybody for joining in. I see the questions. I've seen them in LinkedIn. I see them coming in through email. I see them coming in through Video Ask. I'm putting them all on the list. I promise we'll get to you in order. So the next one is, what are your guys, this was from Roman on LinkedIn, what are your guys' favorite platforms and websites to do user testing and user research? So I assume he means like tools, systems, software, and of course, whatever answers we give are not sponsored. No one here is paid to name any particular companies. So, Nick, why don't we start with you? Do you have any preferred tools right now?
I'm a big fan of usertesting.com. I've been on their espresso webinars recently. It's the most mature platform. Remote user testing is one of my specialities. I specialized it in my PhD in 2005 before social networks were anything. So, distributed computing, all remote stuff is all me, is what I've been fascinated by. And for the longest time now, for 10 years, over 10 years, usertesting.com are the most mature platform. The long story short is I've done incredible things in very short times using that kind of a platform. I use user testing. It's not the only one out there. As I said, it's the most fully featured and the most reliable and the most mature. It's also very expensive, prohibitively expensive. And that's my biggest beef with the company. They need to produce some kind of practitioner level licensing, because it's only enterprise level, which is sort of 50K.
You said this was user testing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when they were $49 a person and we could all afford them. And then they decided to match user Zoom's pricing.
Yeah, $9 a person they were. And that's the show reel that I show everybody. If you Google Nick Fine Virgin Media, you'll see my show reel. That was the first thing I did in like 2015, 2016 that really showed me the power of that thing. I got told no to a lot of changes. And the long story short was I went rogue, like Debbie is saying, paid, I think it was 30 quid for 30 users. oh no, 300 quid for 30 users. Sorry, 300 quid for 30 users. Made this show reel, and it changed everything because I finally had absolutely rock solid evidence that I showed the naysayers and the stakeholders, and suddenly user centricity happened. And I couldn't have done that any other way. It was miraculous and wonderful, and I'm really proud of it. But it's nothing special. You can do the same. Anyone can do the same. It's just getting access to a platform like that when you're just starting out or you haven't got company resources behind you is really hard. There's others, and I would encourage you to find them out, the startups, the small ones, work with them, you know what I mean? Help them develop the product to get a free license.
Yeah. Darren, tools you suggest?
I'm like Dr. Nick. I love user testing. And for those of you out there who are trying to compare or considering user testing versus user Zoom, I'll mention something else that Dr. Nick, building on what he said. User testing, I think, isn't it a novel idea for a user research application to have a good user experience? It's way better than user Zoom. It's not sponsored, so we can say this stuff. So I'm not a fan of the usability in user Zoom. It is flat out frightening. And we were entertaining both of them. I was bringing them into one company a couple jobs ago, and we compared them. And I thought that even having people, we had our trial period, and people were using both apps, and participants taking the test had an easier time taking the test in user testing because they could actually find things. What a novel idea. So yeah, I love user testing. I love Usability Hub for when you can't get a license because it is very cost prohibitive. It's like when you turn in the proposal to get a user testing license, you may as well hand them your right leg at the same time, because that's, proverbially speaking, because it costs an arm and a leg to get it. But when I couldn't get approval for usertesting.com, I settled for Usability Hub, and I just worked within what they offered. So I got some data, so it helped me get some things done. I also love Optimal software. I love that.
Workshop.
The tree testing and the card sorting and things like that. Yeah, Optimal Workshop. What did I say?
You just said Optimal.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Optimal Workshop. And I'm going to give a shout out to Try My UI, which is, the Rit and those folks over there. And I have one more, not as mature as user testing, but they do offer a per user package. You can still do testing based on by user, which is great. The other one I want to throw in here, which I absolutely love, is Screen Cam. And Screen Cam and Full Story, say one half dozen of the other, but the ability to just put code on your site to go back and on demand watch people use your solutions without conducting tests, just to pull those videos to watch people rage click, to watch people who are abandoning at a certain point. You don't have to necessarily go out and conduct a research at that point. You already have the videos available for you. I think that Screen Cam is an absolutely fantastic tool, and if you can get one or more of these to sort of beef up your research efforts, then by all means get them.
Big caveat though, what Darren and I are talking about are not the user fly type. The ones, Darren, can you think of any, or Debbie? They're the analytics type ones with heat maps and scroll depths and all of that stuff. They're more.
Yeah, I think Microsoft Clarity now does that for free.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Because some of those
Screen Cam has. Sorry.
Go on.
I was gonna say Screen Cam has the heat map capability in it. You just made me think of one that I left out too. Tobii. I've been in love with Tobii for years. Tobii. I've been in love with them, where they do the eye tracking, but you have to buy the glasses, or you can put the thing on the people's head so you can tell when their pupils dilate or they begin perspiring and things like that. That kind of stuff is just the whole biometrics thing. The cost is out there. We were never able to get it, but man, one day I sure would love to be able to use Tobii.
Some of that
and so they bring heat mapping in as well.
Some of that stuff is big red herring though. We've got to be so careful of it, and people have been talking about that stuff for a while. Where is eye tracking now? It was massive in 2016. Everybody had Tobii gear, and no one's using it anymore because it was a bullshit sell, unfortunately. It seemed like a great idea. Where you look is not necessarily where you're thinking, and all kinds of stuff, and that's the problem with all of this stuff. Like, so you could measure galvanic skin response, blood pulse, whatever, and it could be the raindrops on my roof that are causing that, or the cat outside, or me worrying about the argument that I had with my wife when I left the house this morning.
Yeah.
All kinds of shit, right? Trust me, it's not. We got a long way before we get to that. Don't let to the audience who are listening. I know there's a tremendous appetite for tools and to things to help you do your job. Tools are not what we're truly about. I promise you this.
Right.
If you spend your life looking for a tool, you'll end up like one of those design types, just jumping from Figma to Sketch to stuff. Honestly, talking to people, observing their behavior, understanding their needs is the epicenter of what we do. And that's what makes me, Darren, and Debbie really great, and Sophie and anybody else who's really experienced.
Yes.
Because we're laser-like on that. Everything else is noise, right? If it helps me get to a user need, then great. But everything else is BS. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
You just remind me how a lot of times this question will come up on LinkedIn, and my answer is always the same. I knew they were talking about these types of things, so I mentioned it here. But the best tool, the best design tool any of us has is this. It's this. And that's why even before you get to the tools, if you get ever get a tool, fine. But remember that interviewing, it takes real EQ and skill to be a good interviewer. It takes real skill. You don't need a tool to do any contextual inquiry. That's something you just do. To conduct guerrilla research, there's no tools. It's you and the ground, and you hit the ground, and you go and you take care of it. And so it's that facilitation skills, which is had a great conversation with someone the other day that a lot of times people don't have the facilitation skills, and patience. That's not a tool. That's part of just your basic makeup. How many people say they want to be in UX research, ask somebody to perform a task or ask the participant a question, and cannot for the life of them shut up? And so when the person clicks something you didn't expect, my life. Right? And everybody was there initially, right? No, that's not what we want you to click. We have to learn to be quiet. Let them click in the wrong place. Make your notes. 18 out of 20 people click the wrong place. Right. Be quiet. Don't tell them what the answer is. Don't tell them certain things. That's the danger in the democratization of research, because most of those people now they're where we were when we first started, and they don't know how to be quiet in those critical moments. And then if they're not quiet, the data research is about actionable data. So now the data is no longer actionable because you didn't be quiet and you told them what to do. And so now we've got people all over the place instead of having, if they click the wrong thing, that's good data. Fine. But
my program manager said to me when he was watching my show reel, he said, I'm really impressed you were able to stay quiet while still making all those mistakes, exactly like you said. And I said, it's taken me probably 8-9 years of hard training and watching my videos back going, oh no, I just did a bad thing. You know, when you've led the witness or done all kinds of stuff. But now I'm great at it, but it took me, it's a good few years to get yourself under control. And you have to watch your videos back. When you're watching your videos back, it's so painful for the first couple of years, but you learn all the mistakes by what we're blessed and cursed, and we're the only profession that's got like an action replay, if you know what I mean, right? You can watch yourself back again, and that's bad for other people, and also bad for people. It's good for you. It's a very powerful learning experience. Do it.
Yep.
I would like to add to this that I've been using some UX Tweak lately, not sponsored, and sometimes Optimal Workshop. And for other stuff, some of you know I'm building my own tool, but that's slow going, so I'm still hoping it comes out next year. But eventually that will be the tool we all use for research. Eric says, I've read a few articles that mention a good UX practitioner remains versatile in tools without locking their skills into single tools. I love the comments about observing being the most valuable behavior, for sure. And just to back up what Darren said, and sorry to put a graphic right over his face, but I remind people that in UX, this is my levels of proficiency model. Building blocks is, hey, I used Figma. hey, I used user testing. It kind of doesn't matter what it is. The problem is that if you're not good at UX, if you're not in science and technique land, if you're not in strategy land at the top of my pyramid, then it's just a tool and you could use it well and you could use it poorly. You know, I remind people like a building block is a hammer. I can pick up a hammer, but I'm not going to use it the same way a seasoned carpenter does. And that's a building block. And the seasoned carpenter's got science and technique and probably strategy. And so while we do need tools and tools can make us more efficient, we don't live and die on tools. And of course, tools change every few years. You know, I used user testing until I couldn't afford it. User testing was $49 a test until they saw User Zoom's pricing and decided, no, we're $26,000 a year. And I just had nothing but 4-letter words for that. And so I moved on to a different tool. And then I moved on to, I don't even remember who I was with. Validately, and then User Zoom bought them, and Userlytics, and I didn't like their pricing and their salespeople. And, you know, if I don't like your pricing, your salespeople, there's 40 other choices for me. Virginia asked, what about Maze? I haven't used Maze because they can't deal with Acture prototypes. And so I looked at Maze and they literally can't work with Acture prototypes. And almost hilariously, because I put in an Acture prototype and a message came up and said, sorry, but we can't work with Envision prototypes at this time. And I was like, oh, that's a whole other level of not being able to work with that. All right.
Most of these platforms were never created by UX people.
Yeah. And they don't always have great UX people working there, which is the crazy thing.
In my experience recently, they unfortunately don't understand UX on a fundamental level. You know, that's not there for some reason, that they're not UX companies.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. All right, let me get to our next question because you know us, we go in slow motion, and I want to make sure we get to everybody's questions. We've got a bunch in the on the list, and this one came in through LinkedIn, though I don't remember who said it. I'll have to roll back and see who said it. But the question was, what do you think about discovery track and the UX designer role on Scrum teams?
Few moving parts there on that one. It's hard to, I'll jump in on this. It's hard to answer an agile question sometimes because 50 companies doing agile and they're all doing,
who knows how it's been implemented.
They're all doing it a different way. So when you go to a company and they're doing agile, you have to sit back and watch and figure out what in the world they're doing, because they're simply not doing it the same way, to the point where the more you know about agile, it can actually work against you. And anyway, just to throw that piece in there. Generally speaking, the discovery track it's a discovery track. It's a time where you're trying to find out what's going on. I always like to think about how early in my career, I used the old 5 planes as a process. So to me, the discovery track, and I found that you could apply it no matter what was going on in any company. So even when I started working on Agile, I was still using Jesse James Garrett's 5 planes. And the first thing is you're trying to find out where in the world you're going, which is equivalent to discovery. So to me, I just paralleled it. And what are we doing? What's going on? Who are the users? Trying to understand what the requirements are, because we can't do any design until we know where we're going or what problem we're solving. So that's still discovery. So whether it's Agile or Waterfall or whatever it is, I just parallel it to the same thing. Again, and again, the UX designer role on Scrum teams, it's going to vary based on what some people are calling Agile. We used to joke about one company I worked at. We called the Agile Fall. That was what we called it, because it was just Waterfall with an Agile sticker put on top of it. It wasn't even Agile. So for that reason, we do what we do, we do what we can, and we work within the constraints that we're in. That's my a very high level answer, I know, because I'm trying to not take too much time to answer it, but you find out how the team works, you understand what the rules of engagement are, and you move on.
Okay, Nick, anything to say about UX and Scrum? And Ray, I see your question and I'm putting it on the end of the list.
I think this is about the discovery and designer role specifically, I think you're asking what's the role of a designer in the discovery phase. I think that's the question, because it's typically a research heavy phase where you're doing lots of interviews and observation. There isn't a lot of prototyping going on necessarily. There isn't a big role for a designer.
Yep.
If that's what you're asking, fair enough. If they're not involved, they're not involved. In government where I'm working at the moment, we run the whole discovery alpha beta live thing. So there is a discovery thing, and the problem is, and I think maybe this is relevant, is that the discovery piece for this project was done 2 years ago. I don't really know who did it because none of the documentation is named or dated. They haven't emptied out the world of pains and needs, so there's stuff coming up now. So I guess what we're saying is if UX designers aren't the right people, they don't have sufficient research experience, they should not be doing the discovery, because it comes back to bite you down the line. Because if you start in alpha and beta testing stuff, you start learning really major pain points or unmet user needs, which should have been raised in discovery, which should have formed the early design or the service design. So I hope that I hope that's what you're after. I don't want to waffle too much, but I think that's where you're driving at.
No extra charge for the waffles. Yeah, and I mean, to me, the main problem with all of this, as I said earlier in today's show, is staffing. I think that especially when we think about Agile and Scrum teams with 6, 8, 10 engineers on them, and there's one UX person, or sometimes a fraction of a UX person, because we're not fully allocated to the project, there's no way anybody's going to think that we're being agile, because that one person or that half of a person needs months to do something. We end up being waterfall, and we're seen as the bottleneck. So to me, the main thing that I'm thinking about, and I'm going to be pushing into next year, is getting closer to a 1-to-1 ratio. We have to stop acting like one UX designer per engineering team is some sort of standard we need to strive for. It's a start. It's a start when you have 0, but it's not the pinnacle. It's not the optimum way to work. It's got to be closer to 1-to-1. So hopefully between the three of us, we've given you some sort of answer. And thank you for asking. And the next question was, what sample size do you need for a UX survey? And I think I know why Dr. Nick is laughing. Nick, want to take that one first?
Yeah, well, it's the same. Is that how long is a piece of string? It's sample sizes for surveys in particular. There's sample sizes for user research in terms of actual observing behavior, and then there's sample sizes of surveys. Surveys, you need much, much larger sample sizes. We're into market research sort of land right now. It's not my area of speciality. I tend to shun surveys. They do have a role, a place in our armory, but I see it way down the list. It's not my go-to. In fact, it's one of my least go-to things.
Agreed.
If you're going to run a sample size, make sure it's bloody large and is representative of the audience. And then even still, you're going to get an awful response rate, and people are going to talk crap. So I really don't like surveys. Darren or Debbie.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback one thing on that, because he said everything that needs to be said about the sample size. So I'm going to expand it real quickly. Be careful of this. Always be careful of the structure, because there are cases where you do need a large sample size with a survey. You have larger sample sizes for quantitative, smaller sample sizes for qualitative, but some people don't even know how to write a qualitative survey. So be careful how you're structuring what you're doing with the surveys, because you could be what sample size is needed, but say, for instance, you're surveying, say, a group of people in a particular department at your job, and maybe there's only 50 people in there. Now you're going to be limited, and how often is there a 100% participation on a survey? So you're not going to get 100% of people, 100% of your target group participating anyway. So the best way to get the best bang of your buck is going to rely on how well that survey is designed, and taking opportunities to have some open-ended questions in there. So instead of just finding out find out the why, and get into some open-ended things so you can draw more data out of that. And again, we don't know the context. So just in general, you want to do that. That's it.
Dr.
Just
Nick.
want to add one quick thing. they teach this on undergraduate psychology courses, right? Survey design is a skill, and it's something that is taught. You learn
Yep.
Likert, you'll learn lots of things. You'll also learn all about the statistics that run behind this, and power and confidence, and that will inform the sample size required to have the potential power to see the effect that may or may not be going on. We're into deep quantified stuff right now, but this is why surveys, when people talk about surveys being quantified, they've got no idea what they're talking about. Just do it well or don't do it at all. That's my humble opinion.
Yeah. And the sad thing is the survey tools are so readily available that people think it's like PowerPoint. You could always tell when somebody who didn't have a lot of PowerPoint experience just discovered the animations. Because then we have what we call death by PowerPoint. We suffer from the same thing with prototyping tools, with surveys. Anything that folks have easy access to usually results with a lot of garbage being produced as a result. So be careful.
And I would just add to this, in addition to what everybody said, is that UX mostly doesn't do surveys. So you have to ask yourself, what are you surveying and why? And is that the best method? Because UX rarely does surveys. We mostly, I would say, we use surveys for screeners, for who to go talk to do proper research. So typically we even though quant can sometimes be beneficial, I rarely do quant because I feel like at the end of the day, saying 56% of people said squiggle, I still don't know who, what, where, when, how, why, and I don't have something that's actionable. I just have a little bit of smoke and I don't have the fire. So I would say before you run a survey, which is really from, to me, marketing's toolkit rather than ours, ask yourself what you're trying to learn, and is this the best way to learn it? Will you learn it with detail and color in a way that you can take action on the results? So thanks for that. Next question came in anonymously, and it says, hey, Delta CX Universe, my question is not directly related to UX. How do you work when you're distracted because of something bad happening in your personal life because you still need to make money? And this reminds me, we had Vivian Castillo on the show, some weeks ago. You can find her in the live podcasts playlist there, and she talked about this. She talked about how we bring our work home, we bring our personal lives to work. There, people pretend there's a separation, but there isn't a separation. You are that person all day long. Yep. I'll quickly answer since I've started. My approach to it is to just be honest with my teammates. And I might not tell them all the details because maybe it's not their business and maybe it's something I don't feel like talking about. But sometimes I will, when I used to go into work, into an office, I used to say, like, you know what? I had some crazy stuff happen this week. I am not in the best space and I'm a little distracted. If you see me make a mistake, let me know. I'm not at my best right now. I don't really want to talk about it. I've just got some stuff going on, and I just wanted you to know it's not my best week. And people were like, okay, let me know if you need anything. They were just friendly and helpful. Nobody pooped on me. Nobody said, go home, and so I said, look, I'm going to do the best work that I can, but I am distracted, and I might have to run out of the room and take a phone call depending upon what's going on. And so I just kind of warmed everybody up for what it is, but, with whatever level of detail or vagueness that I'm comfortable giving, just so I can say, I'm not in the best space, and that's just going to be what it is. And so I think some of that honesty can help. Guys, thoughts?
I'll jump in. I absolutely love that answer. And I think one of the things that came to mind when Debbie was sharing that was it becomes another one of those gauges too, where when you work with people that you can share something like that with, and you get their support, that team is worth its weight in gold. It's not common. It's not common. And so when you're not at your best or something is going on and you can share to whatever degree you are comfortable with the team, and then the team in response supports you, both expressing it and demonstrating it. That's fantastic. Because if something tough is going on to the point where you feel like where you are distracted and you feel like you need to share that with the team, that's big, and you need people to respond in kind with things like that. So it's great. Early in before I was a UXer, before my wife and I got married, my wife actually had my current wife had an accident. She ran into a spider jumped on her, and we laugh about it now, but a spider jumped on her when she was driving, and she got frantic, and she hit a streetlight pole in Detroit. One of those old streetlight poles. It looks like somebody took a tree and stuck a light on top of it. Those big things, they're like, and it landed. Her car was totaled. It landed in the middle of the roof of her car, and she ended up in the hospital. I got wind of what happened. I was at work. I got wind of what happened, and I was freaking out. I was worried and concerned, and I was distracted. And I told somebody at work what happened, and at first I sat aside and they said, you know what? They said, just take off. Go ahead and take off. So I did. And I was back the next day. And when I came back the next day, I felt supported when I left. When I got back, my boss, who was a complete tyrant, I was ridiculed completely for having that, even though I was given permission to leave. I was ridiculed, and that was like one of the worst. I'm not going to go down that road, but just to contrast the two, it was something tough is going on, and somebody can support you. That's wonderful. And even in my UX times, I've suffered things that were similar to that. So you want to, when people support you, embrace it, because it's not common. Not common.
Nick, something to add?
Really interesting to hear your answers. Mine's really different. You see, I'm old school. This is the thing. I'm old school. I come from kind of chin up and, stiff upper lip and fucking war mentality and all, the blitz mentality. It's all about, my life is distracted. I don't know if you know, I announced it recently. I'm ADHD. I'm very ADHD. All my kids are, my brother's kids are. The force runs strongly in my family. I use the anxiety that comes from all of that to be productive and to change my life.
To empower.
So when I'm freaking out over something, when I am distracted, I'll bury my head in work because I use it as an escapism. I'll use it to trigger my hyperfocus. So for me, because I am so distracted, deadline anxiety is critical for me. I mean, without that, I'd be a complete loser, frankly. I need that fear of God in order to make the cogs go and everything fits into line. And then I can find a sixth or a seventh gear. But without it, how do I work when I'm distracted? Is I work because I'm distracted, if you know what I mean. That's how it works for me. I love what Darren opened up with, or Debbie opened up with. You are who you are. And I am infinitely happier as an individual, better mental health in the past, I think, 15 years, when I just decided to let go of all the facade and all the masking and all the trying to be normal. I just said, fuck it. I'm going to be me, warts and all. And some people are going to love me, some people are going to hate me. And this is what you see today. You just see the guy who's straight through, warts and all. And I think I'm a much happier person. I know some people don't get me. They think I'm weird. Probably same with Darren and Debbie, but everybody's authentic in themselves. And I think I have a ton of respect for authentic people. I love authentic people. And when you love or like or respect somebody, it's because you like them, warts and all. You like their bad things, or you can tolerate the bad things, or you respect and understand them in the context of stuff. That's human nature. That's good. That's beauty, in my humble opinion.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
I just also wanted to add to my own answer to say you don't have to say anything to anybody. When Darren was telling his story, I was remembering a time at my Macy's job when I was sitting in a meeting, and the meeting wasn't totally about me. I don't even know why I was there, but I was stuck in this meeting. So I flipped over the window to my personal email, and I just checked my non-Macy's email. And an email came in from a toxic person I had thrown out of my life 8 years before. And that was extremely difficult. I did not want to hear from that person ever again for any reason. I had gone 8 years without hearing from them, and all of a sudden, here was a 1-sentence email from them.
Oh, God.
And I was not okay. And I was very not okay. And I think I had my glasses on, and I think I kind of shifted the way my glasses were on my face, hoping people wouldn't notice that I was crying. And I just sent a quick email to my then boyfriend, and I said, holy shit, look at what I just got, and WTF. And then I was angry. And it was about 2:30 p.m. And I think at around 4, I had no more meetings that day. And I went to my boss. I just said, I'm not okay. Can I go home? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. And so, I stuck through it for an hour and a half. I never told anybody what happened. And I just kind of suffered in silence and went home and wrote that person back a strongly worded but short email, and felt better, and went on with my life. And so just because I've had some good experiences telling people, hey, it's not my day, there's also plenty of times where I just said nothing. What are you going to say? Because the problem with that is, now what? Do I have to tell people the whole backstory of who is this person and blah, blah, like, the only person who cares about that is I-10, because we've learned that I-10 loves drama. So, I-10 friend of the show. And so
I had a heart attack in a stand-up, and I just quietly took myself outside.
Well, you had an actual physical heart attack.
Wow.
Yeah, actual
But
fucking
you
my whole
needed to
heart
go
was
to
on
hospital.
fire.
Did you go to hospital at least?
I took myself downstairs in the lift. I called my wife. I said, you know what? I think I'm going to call a taxi. And she went, you crazy, call an ambulance. Because the last time I had a heart attack a few years before that, it took 45 minutes. So I was like, it's quicker for me to get a cab. But the point is, I didn't want to freak anybody else by, guys, I'm having a heart attack. Everyone would have freaked out, and that would have scared me even more. It was better just to go, just get the fuck out of here, get this dealt with. And I did, and it was all cool. So whatever.
Okay, well that beats my story. I don't even know where to go from there. I mean, the time Nick had the heart attack in the stand-up meeting, the gun show.
Darren, I like that we're synced, bro. I like we're both army.
Yeah, what happened here?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you got your own
Zen.
shirt done. Very nice.
I love it,
Yeah.
dude.
I've got my Delta CX shirts over there. Maybe we can see you in one of those someday. Okay, the next
I
question.
gotta lose 20 pounds.
You've been telling me that like 3 years now. The next
Yeah,
question.
then pandemic happened. I lost 100. Don't forget. I lost 100.
I know, but the
But
pandemic
pandemic
was
happened, and
delicious. All right, we had a follow-up
Yeah.
question earlier from I-10, and I put it towards the end just so we could mix up, because we had some questions from some new viewers in LinkedIn, and I didn't want them to feel left out. So Nick, rotator cuff?
I don't know. It's just too much sitting, too much meetings, too much pandemic, like too much not movement.
All right. Sorry. Who
I'm
was
getting
it who
old and
said they had a
cranky.
dream that they were with the three of us? Was it I-10? We had like Darren does his
Oh,
UX
that's
chit chat hour.
funny.
We have one that we did 2 days ago, and I think it was I-10 who was like, I had a dream that I was with you and Darren and Dr. Nick at your wedding or something. And I said, well, they can come to my wedding. Yeah, I-10's like, yes. So, yeah,
We're all
so
going to be
very
locked down for the
quickly.
next 6 months.
What?
Everybody in Europe's going to be locked down for the next 6 months.
Well, our wedding is planned to be next September. We're hoping that will be okay. And we're planning for it to be a 4-day festival, and we're kind of planning it in
wow.
circles. So like the super inner circle will do things that other people don't with us. And then there's like, middle circle and outer circle. And we're thinking for like outer circle, we're just going to invite like the whole planet. Like if you can get here, it's going to be an outdoor barbecue karaoke festival and some hillside somewhere. If you can get here, get here. And I figured that's where. Oh, Aitan said she dreamt that she was doing tequila shots with Dr. Nick, and I said at the time, that sounds like something that could happen.
Yeah, look, we can make that happen. The
All
last
right.
time I drank tequila was at university in my undergrad. My nickname was Tequila Nick because I got to the worm at the bottom. I was drinking out of a mug. I ended up drinking a bottle, and that was the last time I drank mezcal. I was alcohol poisoned for 3 days since.
All right, well, we'll get you some good Italian wine this time. But hey, VTR, good to see you again. Okay, so back to the questions. But yeah, 3rd week of September, everybody. If Corona permitting, there might be a wedding that technically everyone is invited to.
Sardinia Fest.
Sardinia. Sophie says, I'm coming to your wedding, Debbie, with big love and support. I hope so. We'll get everybody into the middle circle or the outer circle. You're all in at least one of those. Okay, so going back to questions. I10 asked, what do you think about recruitment agencies for user research?
I'll be quick. They're a necessary evil. That's my opinion, because they come with a ton of bias. You often get the recruitment list at literally 11 o'clock the night before. I've had people turn up and sit down and go, I've never used a computer before. This stuff really badly, no screen stuff. They tend to be leveraging the mum network, and it's all like pretend you've used an Audi or drive an Audi. There's a lot of really shonky market research stuff that goes on. A lot of the audiences are really biased, but there are times when you have to pay people to come do a thing, and as biased and as rubbish as it is, that's all you've got. So that's why I say necessary evil.
Darren?
I haven't had very much experience. The experience we've had, it's usually been because somebody else is running the project when it comes to recruiting participants through the agencies. And matter of fact, the guy that was in that Borat movie, there was a Borat movie with the guy, that guy Barry. I know Barry. That's what Barry does. The guy that was running the focus group in the Borat movie, and Barry was the one when we did when the Ford Taurus was coming back out. We did all of our work in Chicago. Barry was the guy that was running those sessions for us too. Same guy from the Borat movie. His company was fantastic. They only had one flaw, where they recruited a guy who apparently faked his way through the questions because he was just trying to get the fee, the participation, I forgot, the honorarium. And but other than that, they did a fantastic job of not only recruiting but facilitation. And we're working with some other folks now. Ray, the company where Ray and I are now, they're doing something, and I'm hoping for good things from them. They did some other, I think I'm not sure if the same company who did some other, who were doing some sessions recently. And if they did a good job, the people that I know of that were participating. So that's the extent of it for me. I think it's like what Nick said. I mean, it's like anything else. You hope that the company takes pride in what they do. And if they do, you hopefully get something that you'll be able to work with as a result. But the chances are it's possible that you'll have garbage, but in general, they should be. If they're not doing a good job, I don't expect they'll be in the business of doing it for too long.
Yeah, not necessarily.
Unfortunately.
There's a huge
Yeah,
demand.
look at Lean UX.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, our next question is about Lean UX, which means I'm going to say something before I let y'all talk, because y'all know I super crazy hate Lean UX, and I believe it's one of the key things that is killing our entire profession. So the question came in that said, this may not be well thought out or well thought through, but why would you want to make UX lean? I'm assuming Lean UX is defined literally. Okay, so here's the problem. Lean UX is not defined literally, and that's mostly because there are two definitions of lean. If you go back to Toyota and the original definition of lean, you'll find that lean was about making companies and specifically assembly lines and factory floors more efficient. And part of the way you made them efficient was by identifying and reducing defects and waste and other things that were wasteful, both internally to the company and externally to the customer's perceived value of the product. So original lean was about where can you identify and reduce risk and waste and trim it and cut it and reduce it, therefore lean. If you think about cutting the fat off of a piece of meat, you were making that lean. What happened was the Lean Startup book came out around 2011, 2012, and they defined lean as doing the least you can do to get to the next thing. So skimping, going fast, minimum viable product, fast, 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 go, go, go. And they said that was being lean. So the problem is that we have two definitions of lean running at the same time, and they're actually kind of opposite. One says go as fast as you can go, no matter what the quality or outcomes are, because maybe you'll fix it later. And the other one says, look closely at your root causes. Look closely at, map what is happening inside of your companies and with your customers so that you can find where the wastes are to be cut. So, unfortunately, Lean UX is neither lean nor UX. It uses the Lean Startup definition of lean. So the idea of a lot of Lean UX is just go really fast, work from guesses, get together in workshops, have everybody stab at the UX, and it takes that what's the least we can do approach, which to me is not lean. Lean is not about skimping. It's not about going fast. People should look up the original Toyota version of lean. And especially when you see things like Lean Six Sigma, they're using the real original definition of lean, not this, we're a cool startup, let's go fast. So as I say in episode 116, everybody drink when I say episode 116. Which you can find in the live stream podcasts playlist. There's lots of great things in real lean that would definitely be helpful. And I talk about things that I like to use from original lean that can help with our CX and UX world. But I certainly wouldn't use Jeff's Lean UX or anything Jeff is pushing. And I know they're coming out with a new, I think, edition of Lean UX, but I can't imagine it's going to say anything too different from what he's been saying because how would he explain that? How would he explain that? Oh yeah, I had a non-viable model, so I have a totally different approach now. It is a non-viable model, and there you go. And a quick joke from VTR who says, work from guesses. Maybe we should have keto UX. That's a good one. I know.
Keto UX is UX UI.
Yeah, there you go.
Take users out. That nasty protein. Just get rid of, or carbs, get rid of it.
Yeah. So that's my usual angry rant about Lean UX. That Lean itself, I love. I think there's lots of great things to be learned from Lean and to utilize from Lean. But Lean UX is a flaming pile of garbage that makes people think the best way to do UX is the fastest you can do, the least you can do, armed with guesses and assumptions. It says work from proto-personas and don't do research. It says don't use research specialists. If you care about Lean UX, just go to YouTube and write Delta CX Lean UX. You'll probably get about 18 videos that I've done on why Lean UX is garbage. I think I've got 5-minute videos and I've got 1-hour videos, and we've got multiple videos on why Lean UX is garbage. So anybody want to add anything to that? Snap.
No.
Yeah.
No.
The only thing I want to add really quickly is why do you want to do the lean thing? And if it's because you want to go faster, step back, have a look. I bet you there's a ton of other easier, quicker fixes that get you a lot more value in terms of speed than going, right, we're now a lean UX house or whatever people are doing.
Yep. Very well said.
Uh-oh, we've lost your voice.
Sorry, I accidentally hit the mute button. Thanks for that. I'm rolling back through questions, and I missed some things from Yasir, but we're going to ask Yasir's questions now. And Yasir, I think you have 2 questions, and I'm going to get the second one on the list for next. So hold on. Okay, it's a lot of copying and pasting over here. So I didn't understand Yasir's question at first, and so we had a little bit of a back and forth in the YouTube, and so I will try to explain to you what I believe I've learned, but Yasir is with us and can clarify this stuff. So first he started with, if a company is trying to copy other companies with its product by providing some extra information or functionality, how should we do research? And then I said, well, wait a minute, are you just ripping off competitors? And then he said, they want final designs. How can we convince startups to take research seriously before they fail in the market? So, I think there's a question somewhere in there about trying to convince a startup to do research before they either enter the market or rip off competitors. Anybody want to comment on any of these? Bye, Sophie. Sophie's got to run.
I'll say something real quick. You're gonna have a hard time. Of course, well, you already know you're gonna have a hard time convincing a startup to do research because they're concerned about the time or things of that nature. And that's where things like guerrilla research could come into play. Some of the paying per, like what I mentioned with Try My UI, paying some of the, if remote usability testing is something that can be used in a given setting, you could go that route. But there are ways where you're going to have to condense and do some type of research, some volume of research, and do it from a low cost perspective, because you're not going to get a usertesting.com license at a startup. That simply isn't going to happen. You might even have trouble getting a usability hub, even though it doesn't cost that much. But you're going to have to find a way to strategize and do some research. So you have to convince them that it can be done quickly and with as little overhead as possible. Just the strategy of getting them to buy in to it. You're going to have to show them the benefits of doing what research will afford you because you've done the research, how it's going to save you development time, how it can save you from the problems of putting something out there that's going to fail. That has to be part of the strategy as well. But if they say yes, because some people are so used to folks saying no, that they're not ready for them to say yes. So you got to have something. You still have to have something quick. You have to be able to do something quick, and it's going to be cost effective if you get the yes. So that's my quick capsulized answer on that.
I'm still owed 15 grand by a startup for which I spent 2 years getting up on Sunday mornings working my bits off for. Who would not listen to a word that I was saying. Marketing people. The problem with startups is someone has had the balls or the vision, the money, this thing together to raise money, and that's very ego supporting, shall we say, right? It's about them driving something forward, trying to bring something to life to get it to market. As a result of that, they've just got no concept of user centricity whatsoever. None. It's like, I'm a genius, I'm a visionary, I'm a this, right? But the idea of like you challenging their vision, that hurts them deeply, The more mature and more experienced people of these entrepreneurs who've done this serially know, oh wow, I've learned something, this makes it better and blah blah blah. But the fresher ones, I get called probably once or twice a month by failing startups said, I've just spent 250 grand with agency X and we've gone live and it's failing. No one's using it. Why? We built it. Why aren't they coming? And it's like, oh Jesus, man, have you ever shown it to a user? No. Well, duh. It's really simple stuff. So I would say in closing, it's about awareness to those guys. Some of them will take it on board and run with it, but if they're not aware of it, they can't even consider it. And that you've got to give them that option. The B side to that is the options, as Darren was saying, they're expensive. That's why it's not easy. If you can afford to get somebody either with equity or something who knows what they're doing, then you can do some really good user research at not a lot of expense very early on. But if you can solve that problem, how do we get user centricity or make user research available or affordable to startups? That would be a good solve.
Yeah, and what I would add to that is partially what I said earlier, that the number one thing you can do is find a handful of people who are customers of these competitors or somebody who fits the target audience but isn't using any of these things right now, and do an observational study. If this is a digital thing, watch them do whatever the task is. Watch them, whatever it is. So many of these startups have such ridiculous things now. I'm going to make an app to help people adopt puppies. Well, what was wrong with the old way of adopting puppies? But, take a look at how people are doing this now, and take a look at whether or not their needs are being well served by these competitors. If their needs are being well served by these competitors, and chances are the competitors are getting it wrong, but if the competitors happen to be getting it right, I usually tell people to not necessarily go into the market unless they can really find a niche for themselves. Because if the competitors are doing a good job and people like using their system, not only do you have to market your new company and get people to pay attention to you and learn about you and get that visibility and awareness, but now you have to pull happy people away from a system they've already committed to. So I think that you want to make sure that there's really a space there. So I'm for the idea of some sort of observational thing to see how people do this task now and what are the opportunities for us to build something that's better than however they do this task now. The other story I've told before, and I'll tell the smaller version, is a friend of mine, back when I lived in San Francisco, a friend of mine had a startup and she was starting to put a lot of money into it. And I said, well, have we spoken to, oh yeah, I've spoken to people. They love my idea. Well, a lot of startup founders think everybody loves their idea. I said, well, look, I'm your buddy. Why don't I do a little bit of free research for you? And she said, oh yes, talk to the person who's going to be customer number one. This is our biggest fan, and I know that so-and-so is going to be customer number one. Now, Yasir, you might not have customer number one lined up, but you might have some people who've expressed some sort of interest, and you can do this type of thing with them. And I didn't take her through tasks. I just had a phone call with her and did an interview, and I asked her to walk me through how she does this now. So I could have made it observational, but I figured I'm just doing this for free for my friend. Let's just start with a phone call, because after all, this is customer number one. This is my friend's biggest fan. And I said, tell me how you do this now. She said, okay, here's how I do it. She walks me through it. And then I said, and how could that be improved? And she said, oh no, I've been working on this system for 20 years and I've been making my task better and better each year. And you know what? I'm pretty happy with it now. And I said, well, is there some way that this could be better, faster, easier, cheaper, some other way that you could do this that would suit you better? She said, no, I've been refining this for 20 years. I'm pretty happy with how I do it now. It really works well for me. I tried asking one more way, some other reworded flavor of that. And she still said, nope, I'm really happy. Nothing I would change, even if I had the magic wand. And I said, so you're not going to be so-and-so's number one customer? And she said, oh, I guess I'm not going to be a customer. And I went back to my friend and I said, I got bad news for you. Customer number one is not going to be customer at all. I think we need to do more research to try to see what people need. And my friend was like, don't do any more interviews. and unfortunately, that startup, she spent like a year on it after that, and then it failed. And I said, what happened? And she said, nobody wanted it. And my thought was, I knew that. And luckily, what she's doing now is highly successful. She started her own business based on what she knows and does best, and she's fantastically successful, and I'm proud of her. But, these things, we can start to see those warning signs, those red flags from either the interviews or the observational research. So I think you've got to do it. iTown is reminding us of this terrible one. Did you guys see this? There was a German startup created by men who created a special glove you could wear if you have to remove your tampon. So two men invented a glove for women because I guess they assumed that taking out a tampon was just so awful that you are going to want to wear a glove.
I would have used a fishing rod personally.
Yeah, I mean, no glove to put it in, but a glove to take it out. Yeah, and of course it was created by men, and so people had a lot to say about that. This was, as Larry would certainly say if he were here, and as I would say, this is a solution looking for a problem. That is something we don't need. Plus, certainly
also known
not
as
good for
innovation
waste.
in the modern world.
Also known as what?
Innovation.
Oh, right. We have innovated a glove women can wear to take their tampons out. If you don't have the glove, do you take it out, or you just leave it, or what happens? I don't know. I'm not asking. Question withdrawn. All right. So moving on. We had another question from Yasir, which I'm going to paste on the screen. And Yasir, you might need to help us with this one. I'm not too sure what you're shooting at, but hopefully we'll figure it out. Madalena says, everybody sometimes means personal friends of the founder. Okay, Yasir said, does UX demand the basic knowledge of product knowledge fields like project management, development, graphic, or any other? I take this question to mean, if we want to work in UX, do we have to know or do product or project management, development or engineering, or graphic design? Darren, you're dying. What? I don't have a sound for that. I just have.
No, we don't. And it's funny. I think we had this conversation before where it's funny how people try to tell UXers that they need to know how to do everybody, or that they need to know how to do everybody else's job, but it's not happening in a reciprocal fashion.
Well, then they all want to do our job. So can everyone just do their own job? Stop trying to do ours. We'll stop trying to do yours.
No, they're trying to refactor who we are and what we do. And then it's dysfunctional. Everybody brings something to the table, and we all do our best when everybody who's an expert in a given area is able to contribute based on their level of expertise. And that's it. We don't have to. When somebody says, the more you learn how developers operate, the better you'll be able to talk to them. I've been doing UX for 26 plus years, and I've never had a problem, for the most part, talking when people are willing to operate in a professional manner. I've never had a problem interacting with anybody else in any other discipline. All my cross-disciplinary interactions have been fine.
Whenever people say that, I always go, show me the developer who wants me to lean over their shoulder and go, I don't like the way you wrote that line.
Yeah. I told somebody once, if a developer came into a meeting I was in one day, didn't come to the design meeting where we were sharing ideas and collaborating and talking about things and cross-pollinating, so to speak. They just came into a meeting with a design that they did in Paint. Microsoft I didn't even know Paint still existed. And this was just 2 years ago. They came into a meeting with what they did in Paint. And I told somebody, I addressed that developer. And how would you feel if I came into a meeting and had redone all of your code?
Right.
You guys would hang me from the top of the building. It's interesting. The only time I've ever had problems with developers is when they try to tell me what to do as a UXer. Which, I had somebody tell me once that I get the feeling you don't think I know anything about UX. And I said, well, number one, I know you know something, but on the flip side, I don't really care. It's important for you to understand what I know about UX, not what I think you know about UX. You're not doing the UX work. I'm doing the UX work. Who cares what you know about UX? I really don't care. But I found out very quickly that person didn't really care what I knew about UX, even though that's my job to do the UX. So we don't need to cross streams, as the Ghostbusters might say. We're not going to. There would be no crossing of streams here. Don't cross the streams. You stay, you do your thing. I'll respect that. I'm going to do my thing. And we hope that, and we're going to respect what everybody does, and we're going to be fine because we're proceeding in a professional manner. The only time you have issues is when there's a lack of professionalism. That's why I never had a problem communicating with anybody, because I was professional with them. And the only time we ever had a problem is when somebody stopped being professional. That's the only time.
Nick, something to add?
They say misery loves company, but so does fear and anxiety. And so, again, talking to Debbie's point earlier about lean, anything that encourages a committee is usually a bad thing, in my humble opinion. You know, we are specialists in our fields and we do what we do. I think what you're asking here, though, is I think what you're saying is that product management does have a lot of kind of angles to it, including a level of project management, interaction with developers, visual or graphic designers, and all that stuff. All I would say is like working with a good product person, understanding how they work is helpful. It's useful.
Yes.
Is it critical? No, not at all. Working for great product managers is just wonderful because they know what they're doing, they know where their roadmap is at, and they'll point you where they need you to go. And you have a mutual respect and understanding of that position, and that just works well. For everything else, I'd say just stay in your lane. We've got enough to learn and challenges in our own lane.
Yes.
I haven't got time for everybody else's. I just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just
and
need
what
to
I
know
would
their
add-
perspectives. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
No, go
What
ahead.
I would add to what's already been said is I always say it's good to be conversational in these other things. It's good to know what these jobs do, but you don't have to be fluent in them. We want them to be conversational in UX. We want them to understand what we do and how, so we're good collaborators. But they don't have to be fluent in UX, and we don't have to be fluent in them. And the other thing I would add is, as I've been saying, remember that we are always under pressure to be more agile and to work faster. And the more jobs try to combine multiple UX jobs or even non-UX jobs, the more the job says you're the researcher and the content strategist and you're the interaction designer and the prototyper and the tester and the visual designer and can you write some HTML and JavaScript? There is no way we're going to be agile. There is no way we're going to fit into the team's ideas of sprints. It's going to take you half a year. If you really had to do all those things I just listed, you've got a half a year of work waiting for you. You can do the whole user-centered design process. There's nothing agile. There's nothing efficient about that. So I, of course, am recommending more and more specialists because that's how we create the assembly line that agile and lean really are, and that ultimately we can be as well. We have the research is the first part of the assembly line, and then we move everything down the assembly line. And the more that we try to make everybody the jack of all unicorns, the less agile we're going to be, because now we have to wait 26 weeks for someone to do all the research and all the analysis and then some information architecture and then some there's no way the dev team is going to wait for your ass. And so that's why I'm trying to say ultimately you put 5 UX people on this and they each have a specialization. So that's where I think we should be going. There's nothing wrong with knowing some things about that, but if anyone is acting like you can't get a job in UX unless you can do some product management, project management, coding, and graphic design, sure, a lot of jobs want graphic design, but I don't do any graphic design and I somehow get a job. I don't do any development. I stopped writing HTML and CSS 10 years ago. I hire people to do it. I can get a job. So, I don't want people to act like the only way to get a job is to do everything. Because guess what? You're probably not doing everything well. And I need to hire people who do things well.
Yep.
Nick?
Just one thing I would say is we are usually like the number one interface to the outside world, to users and their needs, right? We see the world as it actually is in different ways to everybody, including product development and visual design. That means one of your core skills is being able to work and communicate with all kinds of different people, being able to evangelize, being able to sell ideas, to sell insight, because that's what I'm doing more and more these days. I'm more like a digital salesman of research insight. That means if that means finding the right lingo, the right way to click with your development team, with your product people, then that does have value, because you have to be able to implement, or the effect of what you've learned has to be internalized and operationalized. You have to do with something with the stuff that you've brought in, and that can only happen if you're liked. It isn't a personality contest, but you have to be respected and get the message through to people through interesting presentations, good show and tells, good demos, by the way you hold yourself, all of that stuff. I strongly believe that's really important, at least in this time of our lives where user centricity isn't ubiquitous, and we do have to preach. And I spend a lot of my life preaching.
Yeah. Yep. We've got one more question, and then I think we're going to wrap it up because we have been going almost 2 hours. So thanks to everybody for joining. Quick reminder, please do subscribe here on the YouTube channel. We're coming up on 3,000 subscribers, which is just a vanity metric, but I'm very proud of it because I didn't buy any of you. And it's just honest growth. And if you like what's happening on this channel, please tell some friends. And especially for the new streams that I'm doing on some Mondays, Think Out Loud, hashtag UX Think Out Loud, where I'm doing realistic work and I'm talking through it and I'm taking your questions so that you can see how we do our work and we can stop this terrible pseudo education where someone shows you inputs, shows you outputs, and expects you to guess what happened in between. So please join us for Think Out Loud. It's now a playlist as well. The last question we got was a follow-up to the whole lean UX conversation, and it came from Virginia over in our LinkedIn world. And she said, then why do so many people talk about lean UX? So obviously we were crapping on it. I was crapping on it. And she says, why are people talking about it? I've got an answer for that. But before I burn this mofo down, do you guys want to answer this question? Darren, I recognize the delegate from Detroit.
People talk about lean UX. I'm giving you an example of why. I'm trying to focus on the why. I saw we see this on LinkedIn all the time. Which interface is better, A or B? And I look at the stats, 6,000 likes.
Yeah.
Why do people pay attention to stuff that means nothing? Is another way of asking this question. I've been talking about something, clickbait, that's part of it. Getting at the core of the heart a little more is that people have, I've coined this phrase recently, baby bird syndrome, that people are so eager, like the baby bird, eyes wide shut. We've seen it. The eyes are shut tight. The mouth is wide open, trusting that what mama bird is going to put in there is what they want. A lot of people today in UX, especially new UXers, newer UXers, up and coming, and really I've seen anywhere from 0 to 5 years, people are inclined to just accept something because they take it as valuable. And they are in the baby bird mode with the eyes wide shut, I like to say, trusting that what people are dropping in are okay. Lean UX happens to be one of the things that is promoted quite regularly. And so people no critical thinking, don't have the ability to engage fully in critical thinking yet. So they just embrace whatever. And lean UX is one of those things, amongst other things. We could run off a whole list. I know Debbie talks about these things on a regular basis, things that people are, and they're just taking it in, and they're doing the whole Imhotep thing again. Time for Imhotep.
Who can set that one off?
Again. To where they're just, because they see the crowds following it, and people justify something because the crowds are following it, when it might be completely wrong. There's a gross appetite and passion for misinformation today in the world of UX. And there we go. There's Imhotep. Where people just taking in these things, and there's got to be more critical thinking. Do we have to move fast sometimes? Unfortunately, yes. But we way too many baby birds, and we got to come off of that. And so the three of us, I know, try to help people to put a pump on the brakes a little bit. Don't be so quick to embrace things. Be careful when you're on Medium. It's not just lean UX, it's the Medium. I mean, I'll go down the whole laundry list, so I'll reel it in. People do it because they don't know not to. They don't know any better. That's why. And if we continue to help people to know better, that's what we're in the business of. That's why we're here answering these questions, to help people to know better. And the more you know better, the better off you're going to be, the better off your users are going to be, the better off your team is going to be, the better off UX is going to be as a whole. And all of us impact the discipline one way or another. And we want to impact it for the better. And when we know better, we'll impact it for the better.
Nick, anything to add to why people still talk about lean UX?
People still talk about flat earth, anti-vaccination, and a whole bunch of other absolute bollocks as well. That's the point, right? Most of these people aren't qualified to hold an opinion. I don't mean qualifications like PhD, MSc, I mean qualified in experienced. Look at most bootcamp instructors. I mean, that's a classic example. There's most Medium articles. These people are like junkies. You know, they're just after approval, and they're not qualified to. In any other previous world, that would never have made it past editorial. The reason why people talk about lean UX is because lean UX implies easy and light, and I can get hold of that. And the other component here is I think one of you mentioned it. It's basically herd behavior. We are human beings. We are still animals. We herd. We swarm. There's a very famous study. It's not even a study effect. I think it's called the 18th Street effect. The bottom line is this. It was in 18th Street in New York, or maybe 6th Avenue, somewhere really busy in New York. And somebody stood there just pointing up at one of the skyscrapers for about like 10 minutes, right? And literally brought the whole of that postcode to a standstill, because the next person went, "Oh, what is that?" And before you know it, it goes exponential, and everybody's looking up at nothing. Welcome to the world of misinformation in 2021, or if we are right now. That's exactly what's happening.
And I want to piggyback, throw one more thing on there, Debbie. Sorry, inhale on the catcher.
I inhale. Go ahead.
Is that, and this is going to be unpopular, but it's true. That's how Hitler pulled off what he pulled off too. Yes. Hitler believed that if you say things enough, it doesn't have to be true, but if you say it enough, people will start believing it. And frankly, a lot of people in UX today are doing exactly that. That's why things keep getting rebranded. Old things that existed where somebody, I'm always throwing this out there, but they can take something that already exists on the internet, add a pretty icon to it, and then put it out there, and everybody embraced it. And everybody fell for that foolishness. They basically, by adding a pretty icon, they presented something that existed as if it was their idea. And it wasn't. And so people are falling for this stuff, and we get called out for doing it. I'll never stop. It's wrong. It's unethical, and ethics are at the core of what we do. We have to earn trust in order to accomplish what we're doing as UXers, and we can't do it if we're not ethical. So when people embrace that non-ethical mumbo jumbo, it's just problem. Yes, sir. Critical thinking.
And to add to what Darren just said, lean UX is just completely derivative. It's a non-viable model, and it's completely derivative. And if you're not sure, take a look at the lean UX canvas, and then take a look at the lean business model canvas, which was done by somebody who has nothing to do with UX and nothing to do with the author of lean UX. But you'll notice that the author of lean UX just stole the lean business model canvas and changed a couple of words and called it the lean UX canvas. But I always tell people, this doesn't make any sense. We're not determining the business model, and the lean UX canvas has stupid shit on it, like, what's the business problem we're here to solve? Well, what's the business problem we're here to solve? And what solution do we think is the right one? And evidently you're just all sitting in a workshop coming up with that. No users were harmed in the making of the thing. But to answer Virginia's question more closely, there's two key reasons why people still talk about lean UX, because when the lean UX book came out, it was dead on arrival. Anybody who was anybody in UX read it and said, this is a pile of garbage. And in fact, when I ask people, did you read lean UX, like back in the day, people say, I don't know, I don't remember, which is crazy. Or who would say, I don't remember reading the Design of Everyday Things. They either say, I don't remember, or they say, oh my God, I hated that book. So there's two things that bring lean UX into our lives today, because it's not people in UX. It's not me and Darren. It's not Larry Marine. It's not Don Norman. There are two people bringing lean UX into your lives. One are agilists, especially Safe Agile and Scrum.org. They both partnered with Jeff to say that the way that Safe Agile and Scrum.org is done is through lean UX. Now, I can't say that they partnered with him, but it sure looked like they partnered with him. I think he wrote a course for Scrum.org, and now he's trying to distance himself from Safe, but I'm pretty sure there must have been a partnership there, though I can't prove it, because Jeff waited 4 years to say something against SAFe. You would think that if there was something wrong with SAFe's implementation of his Lean UX model, he might have said something on day 2. So number one, you're hearing about Lean UX mostly back through Agile and Scrum, because none of us are talking about it in a positive way, and it's not a model we use. I've never spoken to anybody who has said, yeah, here in our UX department, we're doing Lean UX. It's always something that's being kind of forced on us through Agile and Scrum. The other group of people that are giving Lean UX a tiny little blip of popularity right now is all of the newbies. And so what happens is, if you look at Lean UX, the core of Lean UX, if I just boil it down to one sentence, is anybody can do UX, and we're going to all do it together as endless meetings and workshops. Lean UX says don't use specialists. You don't want specialists. Lean UX says if you have a research specialist, make them a facilitator and don't give work to specialists. And so if you are a newbie and you're worried about how good am I even at any of this UX stuff, I wonder if there's some way I can do UX and have nobody notice if I'm any good at it or not. The answer, of course, is workshops. And the more that you do as group events and team workshops, and everybody just get together and stab at the UX, and UX by committee and Lean UX workshop. And of course, Lean UX poops on specialists. So you can go, oh, good. Like, oh, wow, this is really for me because I'm not a specialist yet. So I think that some of the newbies are giving Lean UX a little bit of a blip because they saw the name of the book. They figured they should know what this is. And it just sounds great because you don't really have to be any good at UX at all. You just have to run workshops.
Yep.
And so it's a great shortcut. You're not doing good user-centered design or human-centered design at all. You're guessing and stabbing, and you're doing it by committee so that you can't be blamed later. Who can blame you? You didn't even do the work. The team did the work. So I think those are the two people who are bringing Lean UX back in. But very often when I ask people, what do you like? You read the Lean UX book. What do you like about the Lean UX book? Oh, I really like that we're going to collaborate a lot more with our teammates. Okay, collaboration's good, but are you sure that you want collaboration by committee? Are you sure you want other people to make decisions in your domain? And if I start asking people critical thinking questions about it, usually they arrive at, oh no, I don't want this. Are you sure you want other people doing your job? Are you sure we want to teach leadership that engineers can do UX, product can do UX, project managers can do UX? Are you sure that's the message you want to teach your leadership? Oh, no. So I think as soon as you do any critical thinking around Lean UX, it falls apart. And we were talking about Lean UX in our Slack workspace the other day. If you want to know how to join the Slack workspace, follow deltacx.com/links. It's on that page. You can join our Slack workspace totally free. And one of our beloved members there, who some of you will know, said, yeah, I worked at a place that actually brought in Jeff to do training, and it was awful. And we couldn't put the model into play at all. And it was the kind of thing where nobody even wanted to talk about the training later because it was such a waste of money. It was like, and we'll never talk about this again. So anyway, I know we're out of time, so let's give the guys a last shout out. So let's start with Nick. Where can we find and stalk you? And reminder, we also changed the date for our next one. We're doing another Friday, December 17, right before Christmas is when these guys will be back. So Nick, where can we find and stalk you?
You can find me at LinkedIn usually, although I'm quiet at the moment because work is very crazy at the moment, like all-time best kind of crazy. So that's, but UX Live is kicking off in 2 weeks' time. I am, keynote's putting it too strongly. I'm just opening the conference. I'm like doing kind of the early graveyard. But I'm going to make it fun and a bit more irreverent as a kind of like a warm-up act. So if you want to get tickets for that, that would be great. UX Live and Behavior and Design are my two favorite conferences each year. So I'm going to give them a big plug. Mr. Hood. Dr. Hood. Soon to be Dr. Hood.
Senor Hood.
Well, LinkedIn as well. That's where most people connect with me out there. the World of UX podcast. Just celebrated 10,000 downloads recently, so I was happy about that. I don't think I mentioned that last time.
All celebrating our vanity metrics.
Except that's all. That is all. What's the word?
Organic.
Natural, organic, all organic. And so I'm celebrating that genuinely, that 10,000 downloads of it. So that one, not that it'd be vanity if I paid for some of it, but I think that's legit. So I like that. I'm just happy about it. I think it's something worth celebrating. No big deal, but it's worth celebrating. And the UX Chit Chat Hour is moved up a week early. We're meeting next Thursday. Because the following Thursday is Thanksgiving in America, so holiday. So we're going to meet a week early. So look forward to seeing people out there. Come join us for some real, just informal conversation about UX.
Cool. And just getting the archive of this ready. All of our streams are always archived on YouTube, so you can always send this to someone you love. It'll be on YouTube immediately. Quick show notes for what's coming up. Monday, I'm doing my next Think Out Loud. We're going to continue from last week. I'm going to continue designing what we started last week. Next week, I had to move around the streams because I'm taking an evening course, and we typically do these shows evening my time. Oh, thank you, VTR. Thank you for the super chat. Very, very sweet. We wrote... critical thinking and usability testing, scientific method, observe, formulate, test, return. So next Tuesday, I'm going to do office hours alone, but I'm doing them early, 10 a.m. Central Europe time. And then Friday, I'm doing a reaction stream, but early, 4:30 p.m. There is a chance that I might have to cancel that. It depends on how the day goes. We're going to pick up our camper van. We bought a super used camper van. So
cool. I'm very jealous. Very jealous.
So come borrow it, Nick. We bought a super used camper van, and we have to. It's 3 hours away, so we have to take the 5:40 a.m. train.
Ouch.
To go pick it up, but we're very excited. So hopefully we'll have a reaction stream next Friday. Thanks, Virginia. Thanks for coming. Thanks to VTR for the super chat. I10, Ray, Sebastian, Madalena, Charlene. So many people here. All the people on LinkedIn today. I'm trying to scroll back and see who everybody was, but not Eric. Yasir, Farouz, not everybody's name showed up into my system, and the letter M, and Andre. So thanks, everybody. I'm going to play us out of here. Have a great weekend, and see everybody Monday for Think Out Loud. Bye. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are